In the dead of night, a marble statue comes alive with venomous intent, its stone eyes hiding a murder most foul. Welcome to The Marble Serpent. Whispers in the Courtyard, a Hercule Poirot mystery that will twist your thoughts like a serpent's coil. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and let the suspense unfold. If you're hooked already, hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Shadows, the Villa. Serpent stood like a gleaming monument to opulence, nestled in the sun-drenched hills of the French Riviera. It was the summer of 1935, and the Mediterranean sun bathed the villa's white marble courtyard in a golden glow, making it the perfect backdrop for Sir Reginald Hawthorne's annual gala. Sir Reginald, a millionaire with a penchant for rare antiquities, was no stranger to spectacle. His latest acquisition, a breathtaking marble statue of a coiled serpent from ancient Greece, had become the talk of the Riviera's elite. Its flawless craftsmanship and eerie, almost lifelike presence drew whispers from every corner of the villa. Some said it was cursed, that its stone eyes held secrets darker than the night itself. Others laughed off the tales, but their laughter carried a nervous edge. This was the stage for a mystery that would soon unravel, and at its centre stood the one man capable of solving it, Hercule Poirot. Poirot, the fastidious Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed moustache and a mind sharper than a stiletto, had received a peculiar invitation. It came in Sir Reginald's bold, looping handwriting. "Come, mon ami, to Villa Serpente. A puzzle awaits that will test even your formidable little grey cells." The note was cryptic, teasing and utterly irresistible to a man like Poirot, who thrived on the challenge of untangling the human heart's darkest knots. Accompanied by his loyal friend and valet, Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot arrived by train at the villa's private station, the scent of lavender and sea salt filling the air. As they stepped into the grand foyer, chandeliers sparkled above, casting a kaleidoscope of light across polished marble floors. The villa buzzed with the chatter of guests, each one a potential player in the drama to come. The guest list was a who's who of wealth and intrigue. There was Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's wife, whose sharp tongue and icy demeanour masked a storm of unspoken grievances. Dr. Marcus Hale, a disgraced archaeologist with a penchant for gambling, hovered near the edges of conversations, his eyes darting nervously. Miss Clara Voss, a young heiress with a radiant smile and a knack for mischief, seemed to charm everyone, yet her laughter felt calculated, as if she were playing a part. Then there was Captain Julian Thorne, a decorated war veteran whose quiet intensity and scarred hands hinted at a past he preferred to keep buried. These were the players, and Poirot, ever the observer, noted every glance, every whispered word, every fleeting shadow that crossed their faces. The evening began with a lavish dinner in the villa's dining hall, where gold-rimmed plates gleamed under candlelight, and servants glided silently with trays of champagne and caviar. Sir Reginald, a stout man with a booming voice and a penchant for theatrics, held court at the head of the table. "My friends," he declared, raising a glass, "tonight we celebrate beauty, history, and the mysteries of the past." His eyes twinkled as he gestured toward the courtyard, where the marble serpent awaited its moment in the spotlight. After dinner, he led the guests outside for the grand unveiling. The statue stood in the centre of the courtyard, its coils gleaming under the moonlight, its carved scales so lifelike they seemed to shimmer with movement. "Legend has it," Sir Reginald said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "that this serpent guards treasures and punishes those who dare to steal them." The crowd laughed, but Poirot's sharp eyes caught the unease in their smiles. As the night deepened, the guests scattered across the villa. Some danced in the ballroom to the strains of a string quartet, while others wandered the gardens, their voices carrying on the warm breeze. Poirot, sipping a cup of his beloved tisane, stood on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Hastings, ever eager, leaned in. "What do you make of it, Poirot? All this talk of curses and treasures. Surely it's just a rich man's fancy." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "Mon cher Hastings, where there is wealth, there is envy. Where there is envy, there is motive. And where there is motive—" He trailed off, his gaze fixed on the serpent statue below. Something about its presence unsettled him. Not the legend, but the way it seemed to draw the guests' attention, like a magnet pulling at their secrets. The air grew heavier as midnight approached. Poirot's keen senses picked up the undercurrents of tension. Lady Evelyn's clipped words to her husband, Dr. Hale's furtive glances at the serpent, Clara's too perfect laughter, Captain Thorne's clenched fists. Then a piercing scream shattered the night, echoing from the courtyard. Guests froze, glasses clinking as they were set down in haste. Poirot and Hastings rushed toward the sound, arriving to find a chilling scene. A body lay crumpled at the base of the marble serpent, blood pooling on the pristine stone. The victim's eyes stared blankly at the statue, as if locked in a final silent conversation. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers tracing the air above the scene, careful not to disturb it. "Hastings," he murmured, "observe the position, the surroundings. The serpent, it seems, has struck." The crowd gathered, gasping, whispering, some turning away from the grisly sight. Poirot's mind was already at work, cataloguing every detail: the angle of the body, the faint scuff marks on the marble, the curious absence of a weapon. "This is no accident," he said softly, his voice steady but grave. "This is murder, and the serpent, it whispers to us all." The chapter draws to a close with the villa plunged into chaos, guests murmuring in fear, and Poirot standing like a calm beacon amid the storm. His little grey cells hum with questions. Who had motive to kill? What role does the serpent statue play? And why did Sir Reginald summon him here? The answers lie ahead, coiled like the statue itself, waiting to strike in Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Serpent's Gaze, the courtyard of Villa Serpente, once a stage for glittering revelry, now lay under a shroud of dread. The moon cast long shadows, making the marble serpent's coils seem to writhe against the blood-stained stone. Hercule Poirot stood motionless, his keen eyes scanning the scene where the body still lay, untouched until the local gendarmerie could arrive. The guests had been ushered into the villa's grand salon, their whispers a mix of shock and suspicion. Captain Hastings fidgeted nearby, his face pale. "Good heavens, Poirot, who could have done this?" he muttered. Poirot's moustache twitched, but he said nothing, his mind already weaving through the tangled threads of motive and opportunity. Inside the salon, the air was thick with tension. Lady Evelyn sat rigidly on a velvet chaise, her fingers clutching a handkerchief as if it could anchor her composure. Dr. Marcus Hale paced near a window, his shadow flickering against the heavy curtains. Miss Clara Voss perched on an ottoman, her earlier charm replaced by a nervous habit of twisting a pearl bracelet. Captain Julian Thorne stood apart, his gaze fixed on the floor, as if the weight of the night pressed him into silence. Poirot entered, his small frame commanding the room without effort. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice calm but firm. "A crime has been committed, and none shall leave until we uncover the truth." He began his inquiries with subtle precision, moving from guest to guest like a chess master plotting his next move. Lady Evelyn claimed she'd been in the ballroom, dancing with a diplomat when the scream rang out. Her alibi was flimsy, supported only by a vague nod from the diplomat, who seemed more interested in his cognac than the truth. Dr. Hale insisted he'd been in the library, examining Sir Reginald's collection of ancient texts. Yet his hands trembled, and Poirot noted a faint smudge of dirt on his cuff. Odd for a man supposedly indoors. Clara Voss swore she'd been in the garden, admiring the roses, but her shoes were spotless, betraying no trace of the gravel paths. Captain Thorne offered the least. "I was alone, smoking on the terrace." His voice was flat, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. The detective's attention shifted to the serpent statue itself. He returned to the courtyard, where the first light of dawn was creeping over the hills, bathing the marble in a pale glow. The statue's eyes, carved with uncanny detail, seemed to follow him. Poirot circled it, noting a faint chip on one of its coils, barely visible unless one looked closely. Nearby, a small, ornate cigarette case lay half hidden in the grass, its silver surface engraved with the initials JT. He slipped it into his pocket, his expression unreadable. "The serpent sees all," he murmured to Hastings, "but it does not speak. We must listen to what it does not say." Back in the villa, Poirot gathered the staff, maids, footmen, and the stern-faced butler, Monsieur Dubois. The butler, a man of rigid propriety, recounted the evening's events with mechanical precision. The serving of dinner, the timing of the courtyard tour, the moment the scream shattered the night. One maid, a young woman named Elise, hesitated when asked about her whereabouts. "I was clearing plates," she stammered, her eyes darting to Dubois. Poirot's gaze lingered on her, but he pressed no further, for now. Instead, he asked about Sir Reginald's habits. Dubois revealed that the millionaire had been unusually secretive in recent weeks, often locking himself in his study with the serpent statue's provenance papers. Poirot's next stop was Sir Reginald's study, a room lined with oak shelves and littered with artifacts, vases, scrolls, and fragments of stone tablets. On the desk lay a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with sketches of the serpent statue and notes in Sir Reginald's hand. One entry caught Poirot's eye. "The curse is real. It watches. I must protect it." The words were scrawled hastily, as if written in fear. Beside the journal was a photograph of the statue being unearthed at a dig site, with Dr. Hale prominently in the foreground, his face grim. Poirot tucked the journal under his arm, his mind racing. Was the statue the key to the murder or merely a distraction? As the morning unfolded, the gendarmerie arrived, led by Inspector Lefebvre, a gruff man who regarded Poirot with a mix of respect and irritation. "Monsieur Poirot, this is a French matter," Lefebvre said. But Poirot merely smiled. "Crime inspector knows no borders. Allow me to assist, oui?" Reluctantly, Lefebvre agreed, and Poirot shared his initial observations, though he kept the cigarette case and journal to himself. The body was identified, but Poirot requested the name be withheld from the guests to prevent panic. The cause of death appeared to be a single, precise blow to the head, yet no weapon was found. The mystery deepened, like a fog settling over the villa. The guests were growing restless, their alibis unravelling under Poirot's gentle but relentless questioning. Clara's charm faltered when he asked about her connection to Sir Reginald's antiquities. She blushed and changed the subject. Dr. Hale grew defensive when pressed about his time in the library, muttering about professional rivalries. Lady Evelyn's composure cracked when Poirot mentioned her husband's journal, her eyes flashing with something like fear. Only Captain Thorne remained stoic, but his silence spoke louder than words. Poirot retreated to the courtyard once more, standing before the serpent statue as the sun climbed higher. Hastings joined him, exasperated. "Poirot, it's just a statue. Surely the killer is one of the guests, not some cursed relic." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Ah, Hastings, the statue is no killer, but it is a witness. It draws out the truth, like a serpent charming its prey." He pointed to the chip on the statue's coil, then to the ground where the cigarette case had lain. "Someone was here, mon ami, and they left more than they intended." The chapter closes with Poirot stepping back, his mind a whirl of clues. The cigarette case, the journal, the chip on the statue, the nervous maid. The villa's walls seem to close in, each guest a suspect, each shadow a secret. The serpent's gaze holds the key, but what truth will it reveal? The story coils tighter in Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Shadows of Motive. The Villa Serpente, bathed in the soft light of a Riviera morning, seemed to hold its breath as the weight of the previous night's tragedy lingered. The courtyard, now cordoned off by Inspector Lefebvre's men, was silent save for the faint rustle of palm trees in the breeze. Hercule Poirot stood in Sir Reginald Hawthorne's study, the leather-bound journal open before him, its cryptic words, "The curse is real. It watches. I must protect it," burning in his mind. The room, with its heavy oak shelves and scattered relics, felt like a vault of secrets, each artifact a potential clue to the murder that had shaken the villa. Captain Hastings hovered near the door, his brow furrowed. "Poirot, surely this journal is just the ramblings of an eccentric old man," he ventured. Poirot's eyes, sharp as ever, flicked up from the page. "Non, Hastings. In every word there is purpose, and in purpose there is motive." Poirot's investigation deepened as he sifted through the study's contents. The photograph of the Serpent statue's excavation, with Dr. Marcus Hale's grim face staring out, hinted at a past connection to the artifact. Poirot traced a finger over the image, noting the date, 2 years prior, in a remote Greek valley. Beside it, a letter tucked into the journal's pages caught his attention. Written in a hurried scrawl, it was addressed to Sir Reginald from an unnamed source. The Serpent's secret must stay buried. Trust no one, not even those closest. The letter was unsigned, but the paper bore a faint watermark, a crest Poirot recognized as belonging to an old archaeological society. He slipped the letter into his pocket, his mind cataloguing its implications. Was Sir Reginald protecting a secret worth killing for? Leaving the study, Poirot sought out the villa's staff, starting with Elise, the nervous maid who had faltered under his earlier questioning. He found her in the kitchen, her hands busy polishing silverware, though her movements were jerky, betraying her unease. "Mademoiselle Elise," Poirot began, his voice gentle but probing, "you were clearing plates last night, oui? Yet you seemed preoccupied." Elise's eyes widened, and she dropped a spoon, the clatter echoing in the quiet room. I was just doing my duties, monsieur," she stammered. Poirot tilted his head, noting the faint tremor in her voice. "And did you see anything unusual near the courtyard? Perhaps someone lingering near the Serpent?" Elise shook her head too quickly, her gaze darting to the door where Monsieur Dubois, the butler, had just entered. Poirot smiled faintly, letting the moment pass, but he filed away her reaction. Someone or something was making her afraid. Next, Poirot turned his attention to the guests, summoning them one by one to a small parlour adorned with tapestries of mythical creatures, a fitting backdrop for a mystery steeped in legend. First was Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, her posture as rigid as the marble serpent itself. She wore a silk dress the colour of storm clouds, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Monsieur Poirot, this is absurd," she snapped, when asked about her whereabouts after the courtyard tour. "I was with the guests, as any hostess would be." Yet when Poirot pressed her about Sir Reginald's obsession with the statue, her composure wavered. "He was consumed by it," she admitted, her voice dropping. "He spent hours in his study, muttering about its history, its power. I thought it madness." Her eyes flicked to the window, as if expecting to see the Serpent staring back. Poirot noted the strain in her words, grief or perhaps guilt. Dr. Marcus Hale was next, his dishevelled appearance a stark contrast to the polished archaeologist in the excavation photo. He slumped into a chair, his fingers drumming nervously on the armrest. "I was in the library, as I told you," he insisted. But Poirot's gaze lingered on the dirt-smudged cuff of his shirt. "And what did you seek in Sir Reginald's books, Doctor? Knowledge or something more tangible?" Hale's jaw tightened. "I was researching the Serpent's origins. It's a rare piece, possibly Minoan. Reginald and I disagreed on its significance." His voice carried a bitter edge. and Poirot sensed a rivalry that ran deeper than professional pride. Had Hale's resentment driven him to violence? Miss Clara Voss entered the parlour with a forced smile, her pearl bracelet glinting as she adjusted her hair. "Monsieur Poirot, this is all so dreadful," she said, her voice lilting but her eyes guarded. She claimed to have been in the garden during the murder, but Poirot pressed her gently. "The roses are lovely, mademoiselle, but the paths are gravel. Your shoes, they are pristine." Clara's smile faltered, and she twisted the bracelet harder. "I must have stayed on the grass," she said weakly. Poirot let the lie hang in the air, his mind noting her connection to Sir Reginald's antiquities. She had been seen admiring the Serpent earlier, her fingers lingering on its coils. Captain Julian Thorne was the last to be questioned, his military bearing evident even in his silence. He stood by the window, his scarred hands clasped behind his back. "I told you I was on the terrace smoking," he said, his voice low and steady. Poirot produced the silver cigarette case with the initials JT and watched Thorne's reaction. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly masked. "It's mine," he admitted. "I must have dropped it earlier." Poirot nodded, his expression neutral. "And yet it was found near the Serpent, Captain. A curious place for a smoke, no?" Thorne said nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. As the day wore on, Poirot returned to the courtyard, where Inspector Lefebvre's men were photographing the scene. The chip on the Serpent's coil intrigued him. A fresh mark, not weathered by time. He knelt, examining the ground nearby, and found a tiny shard of marble, no larger than a coin, half buried in the grass. It matched the statue's texture perfectly. Had someone struck the statue, or had it been damaged in the struggle? Poirot's fingers brushed the shard, his mind racing. The Serpent was more than a decoration. It was a silent witness to the crime, its secrets locked in stone. Back in the salon, the guests' nerves frayed as whispers of the curse grew louder. Clara clutched her bracelet. Hale avoided eye contact. Evelyn's handkerchief was now a crumpled mess, and Thorne's jaw twitched as he stared out the window. Poirot stood among them, his calm presence a stark contrast to their unease. "The Serpent does not kill," he said softly, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "But it reveals. Each of you carries a truth, and I, Hercule Poirot, will find it." The chapter ends with the villa steeped in suspicion, the Serpent's gaze seeming to pierce every heart. Poirot's clues, the journal, the letter, the cigarette case, the marble shard, form a puzzle that grows more complex with each revelation. Who feared Sir Reginald's secret? Whose hand struck the fatal blow? The answers slither closer in Chapter 4. Chapter 4, The Whisper of Betrayal. The sun climbed higher over Villa Serpente, its rays glinting off the marble serpent in the courtyard, casting sharp shadows that seemed to point accusingly at the villa's inhabitants. Hercule Poirot sat in a quiet corner of the library, the leather-bound journal and mysterious letter spread before him on a mahogany table. The air smelled of old books and wax polish, but beneath the calm, a storm of suspicion brewed. Captain Hastings, ever restless, hovered nearby, flipping through a book he clearly wasn't reading. "Poirot, all this talk of curses and secrets, it's getting under everyone's skin," he said, glancing toward the door. Poirot's eyes gleamed with focus. "The skin, Hastings, is where the truth begins to itch, and I, Poirot, shall make it itch more." Poirot's first move was to revisit the letter's watermark, the crest of an archaeological society. He recalled its emblem, a laurel wreath encircling a lyre, from a case years ago involving stolen artifacts. The society was known for its wealthy patrons and questionable ethics, often funding digs that bordered on plunder. Could Sir Reginald's Serpent statue have been acquired through such shady means? Poirot made a mental note to investigate Dr. Marcus Hale's connection to the society, given his presence in the excavation photo. The letter's warning, "Trust no one, not even those closest," suggested Sir Reginald had enemies within his own circle. But who? Seeking answers, Poirot sought out Monsieur Dubois, the butler, whose rigid demeanour masked a wealth of knowledge about the villa's inner workings. They met in the pantry, surrounded by shelves of crystal glassware. Dubois stood ramrod straight, his eyes wary. "Monsieur, I have served the Hawthorns for 20 years. I know my place," he said when Poirot asked about Sir Reginald's recent behaviour. Yet, under gentle probing, Dubois revealed a detail. Sir Reginald had installed a hidden safe in his study a month ago, accessible only by a combination known to him alone. He was secretive, even with Madame Evelyn, Dubois added, his tone neutral but his eyes flickering with unease. Poirot thanked him, noting the butler's reluctance to speak of Elise, the nervous maid. Was Dubois protecting her or himself? Next, Poirot turned his attention to the physical evidence. He returned to the courtyard, where the serpent statue stood like a silent sentinel. The marble shard he'd found earlier lay in his pocket, its edges sharp and fresh. Inspecting the statue again, he noticed something new. A faint smear of red, not blood, but wax, near the chipped coil. It matched the crimson candles used during the gala's courtyard tour. Had someone lingered here after the tour, perhaps tampering with the statue? Poirot crouched, his eyes scanning the ground, and found a single pearl, small and lustrous, half hidden in a crack between the stones. It resembled those on Clara Voss's bracelet. He pocketed it, his mind racing. Clara had claimed to be in the garden, yet this pearl suggested otherwise. Poirot's next encounter was with Inspector Lefebvre, who was overseeing the removal of the body, now identified but still unnamed to the guests. The inspector shared a preliminary report. The fatal blow was delivered with a blunt object, likely metal or stone, but no such weapon had been found. "The killer was clever," Lefebvre grumbled. "No fingerprints, no obvious traces." Poirot nodded, his thoughts on the cigarette case bearing Captain Thorne's initials. He decided to confront Thorne, finding him in the villa's billiard room, leaning against the table, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Captain," Poirot began, producing the cigarette case, "you say you dropped this earlier, yet it was found after the murder, near the Serpent. Care to explain?" Thorne's scarred hands tightened around the glass. "I told you I was smoking. I don't recall every step I took." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Poirot pressed further, mentioning the red wax, but Thorne's face remained impassive. "I don't use candles," he said curtly, ending the conversation. Returning to the salon, Poirot observed the guests, their interactions now strained to breaking. Lady Evelyn sat alone, her handkerchief shredded, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. Dr. Hale was deep in conversation with Clara, their heads bent close, their words inaudible. When Poirot approached, they sprang apart, Hale muttering about artifacts, and Clara offering a brittle smile. "Monsieur Poirot, must you hound us so?" she asked, her tone playful, but her fingers twisting the bracelet, now missing a pearl. Poirot merely smiled, his mind cataloguing her unease. Had Clara been in the courtyard, and if so, why lie? Later, Poirot slipped into Sir Reginald's study to search for the hidden safe Dubois mentioned. Running his fingers along the bookshelves, he found a panel that clicked under pressure, revealing a small steel door. The combination lock gleamed, unyielding. Poirot studied it, noting faint scratches around the dial. Someone had tried to force it open. He closed the panel, deciding to keep this discovery to himself until he could test the guests' reactions. As he left the study, he caught Elise lingering in the hallway, her apron clutched tightly. "Monsieur, please," she whispered. "I didn't see anything, I swear." Her fear was palpable, but before Poirot could question her, she fled, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. As evening fell, the villa's atmosphere grew oppressive, the guests' nerves fraying like worn threads. Poirot gathered them in the dining hall, where the remnants of last night's feast had been cleared, leaving only the scent of wax and wine. "Mes amis," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "The serpent statue is no mere ornament. It holds a secret, one that someone in this room is desperate to protect or destroy. His eyes swept over the faces. Evelyn's pale shock, Hale's clenched jaw, Clara's nervous glance, Thorne's stoic mask. "The truth is near," he continued, "and I, Hercule Poirot, shall uncover it." The chapter closes with the villa cloaked in twilight, the Serpent's marble coils glowing faintly under the stars. The clues pile up, the letter's warning, the hidden safe, the red wax, the pearl, the scratches on the lock, each a piece of a puzzle that grows more intricate. Who tried to open the safe? What does Elise fear? And what betrayal lurks in the shadows of Villa Serpente? The mystery tightens its grip in Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The locked secret twilight draped Villa Serpente in a veil of mystery, the Mediterranean breeze carrying a chill that seeped into the bones of its guests. The marble serpent in the courtyard stood silent, its carved eyes gleaming as if mocking the chaos it had witnessed. Hercule Poirot paced the villa's upper gallery, his polished shoes clicking softly on the marble floor, his mind a whirl of clues. The cryptic letter, the hidden safe, the pearl from Clara's bracelet, the red wax smear. Each fragment pointed to a deeper truth, but the puzzle remained incomplete. Captain Hastings, trailing behind, broke the silence. "Poirot, this place feels like a trap. Everyone's hiding something." Poirot paused, his moustache twitching. "Oui, Hastings, but it is in their secrets that we find the key, and that key lies locked away, perhaps literally." Poirot's first task was to unravel the mystery of the hidden safe in Sir Reginald's study. He returned to the oak-panelled room, the air heavy with the scent of leather and dust. The secret panel behind the bookshelf slid open with a faint creak, revealing the steel safe, its combination lock unyielding. The scratches around the dial suggested a clumsy attempt to force it, but the safe remained sealed. Poirot's keen eyes noticed something new. A faint trace of oil on the panel's edge, as if someone had used a tool to pry it. He made a mental note to check the villa's toolkit, suspecting the intruder had left a trace. "The safe holds the Serpent's secret," he murmured, closing the panel. But who had the motive and the means to crack it? Seeking answers, Poirot sought out Dr. Marcus Hale, whose connection to the Serpent's excavation made him a prime suspect. He found Hale in the villa's conservatory, surrounded by exotic plants, his fingers nervously tracing the leaves of a fern. "Dr. Hale," Poirot began, his tone deceptively mild, "your expertise in antiquities is well known. Tell me, what is the true value of the Serpent statue?" Hale's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "It's a masterpiece, Minoan or earlier, but its value is academic, not monetary." Poirot raised an eyebrow, mentioning the Archaeological Society's crest from the letter. Hale stiffened. "I left that society years ago. Their methods were unethical." His words were clipped, but Poirot sensed a lie. Had Hale's falling out with Sir Reginald over the statue turned deadly? Next, Poirot turned his attention to Elise, the maid whose fear seemed to grow with each passing hour. He found her in the servants' quarters, folding linens with trembling hands. "Mademoiselle Elise," he said softly, closing the door for privacy. "You know more than you say. What did you see near the courtyard?" Elise's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "I can't, monsieur. It's too dangerous." Poirot leaned closer, his voice soothing. "You are safe with me. Speak, and the truth will protect you." After a long pause, Elise whispered, "I saw someone by the Serpent after the tour. They were touching it, like they were looking for something." She refused to name the figure, her fear outweighing her trust. Poirot nodded, letting her go, but her words confirmed his suspicion. The statue itself was the key to the murder. To test his theory, Poirot enlisted Hastings to help him examine the Serpent statue more closely. Under the fading light, they slipped into the courtyard, now unguarded as the gendarmerie focused on the villa's interior. Poirot ran his gloved fingers along the statue's coils, searching for irregularities. Near the base, hidden among the carved scales, he found a faint seam, barely visible, suggesting a hidden compartment. He pressed gently, but it didn't budge. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, "the serpent guards its treasure well." Hastings, peering over his shoulder, frowned. "A compartment? For what?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "For something worth killing for, mon ami." He noticed another detail, a faint scratch near the seam, matching the oil trace from the safe's panel. The same tool had been used here. Poirot's next move was to confront Clara Voss about the pearl found near the statue. He found her in the drawing room, sketching idly on a notepad, her bracelet now noticeably missing a bead. "Mademoiselle Voss," he said, producing the pearl. "This was found in the courtyard, where you claimed not to be. Care to explain?" Clara's face paled, but she recovered quickly, her laugh light but strained. "Oh, that? I must have lost it earlier. I was admiring the statue during the tour." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, and yet the pearl was fresh, unweathered. "You were there later, oui?" Clara's smile vanished, and she stood abruptly, muttering about needing air. Poirot watched her go, certain she was hiding more than a lost pearl. As night fell, Poirot gathered the guests in the grand salon, where tension hung like a storm cloud. Lady Evelyn clutched a glass of wine, her knuckles white. Hale avoided Poirot's gaze, his fingers tapping restlessly. Captain Thorne stood by the fireplace, his expression unreadable. Poirot addressed them, his voice calm but commanding. "The serpent statue is no mere relic. It hides a secret, one that someone in this room has killed to protect or to claim. The safe, the statue, the murder, they are linked." Gasps rippled through the room, but no one spoke. Poirot's eyes lingered on each face, searching for a crack in their facades. "The truth cannot hide forever," he added, "and I shall find it." Before dismissing them, Poirot pulled Inspector Lefebvre aside, sharing his discovery of the statue's seam and the oil traces. Lefebvre, though sceptical, agreed to have his men search for a matching tool among the villa's supplies. As the guests dispersed, Poirot caught a fleeting glance between Hale and Clara, a silent exchange that spoke of complicity or fear. He resolved to watch them closely, suspecting they knew more about the statue's secret than they admitted. The chapter closes with Villa Serpente steeped in unease. The serpent's marble coils a constant reminder of the danger within. Poirot's clues, the safe's scratches, the statue's seam, Elise's whispered confession, Clara's pearl, form a tightening noose around the truth. Who sought the statue's hidden treasure? What drove them to murder? The answers lurk closer, coiled and ready to strike in Chapter 6. Chapter 6. The Coil of Lies. The Villa Serpente stood hushed under a starlit sky, its grandeur marred by the shadow of murder. The marble serpent in the courtyard loomed like a silent judge, its hidden compartment a tantalizing clue that Hercule Poirot could not ignore. The detective sat in the villa's dimly lit music room, a single lamp casting soft light on the grand piano where his fingers rested, not playing but tracing the keys as if they held answers. Captain Hastings, pacing nearby, broke the silence. "Poirot, this statue business, it's madness. A secret compartment? What could be worth all this?" Poirot's eyes sparkled with quiet intensity. "Mon cher Hastings, it is not the treasure itself, but what it means to the killer. The serpent's coil hides lies, and we must unravel them." Poirot's first move was to investigate the oil traces linking the safe and the statue's seam. He sought out Inspector Lefebvre, who had finished searching the villa's toolkit in the gardener's shed. The inspector, his face etched with fatigue, held up a small, well-worn chisel, its tip slick with oil. "Found this hidden behind a stack of pots," Lefebvre said. "It matches the scratches on the safe and the statue." Poirot examined the tool, noting its worn handle, marked with faint initials, MH. His mind flashed to Dr. Marcus Hale. "Merci." "Inspector," Poirot said, his voice calm but his thoughts racing. The chisel was a thread tying Hale to the crime, but was it too obvious? Poirot decided to confront Hale directly, finding him in the villa's smoking room, a haze of cigar smoke curling around him. Hale's eyes widened as Poirot produced the chisel, laying it on the table between them. "Doctor, this tool bears your initials. It was used to tamper with the safe and the Serpent statue. Explain, s'il vous plaît." Hale's face flushed, his hands clenching. "That's preposterous. I haven't touched that chisel in years. Anyone could have taken it from the shed." His voice rose, but Poirot noted a tremor in it, a crack in his bravado. "And yet, Doctor, you were at the excavation of the statue. You quarrelled with Sir Reginald. Is there something you wish to find or hide?" Hale stood abruptly, muttering about needing rest, but his hasty exit spoke louder than words. Next, Poirot turned his attention to Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, whose fraying composure hinted at deeper involvement. He found her in the villa's rose garden, her silk shawl trailing as she paced among the blooms. "Madame," Poirot began, his tone gentle but probing. "Your husband's journal spoke of a secret he feared. Did he share it with you?" Evelyn's lips tightened, her eyes darting to the distant courtyard. "Reginald was obsessed," she said bitterly. "He believed the statue held something ancient, something dangerous. He wouldn't tell me what, only that it could ruin us." Her voice cracked, and Poirot caught a glint of desperation. Was she protecting her husband's legacy or her own secrets? Poirot's thoughts returned to Elise, the maid whose fear seemed to choke her words. He found her in the laundry room, ironing linens with mechanical precision. "Mademoiselle Elise," he said softly, closing the door. "You saw someone by the Serpent. You must tell me who." Elise's hands shook, the iron nearly scorching the fabric. "It was a man," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tall, in a dark coat. I couldn't see his face, but he was searching the statue like he knew something was there." Poirot pressed gently, but Elise clammed up, tears streaming down her face. "Please, monsieur, they'll hurt me." Poirot's heart softened, but he knew her fear pointed to a powerful force within the villa. To test his suspicions, Poirot enlisted Hastings to keep watch on Captain Julian Thorne, whose stoic demeanour and dropped cigarette case made him an enigma. Hastings trailed Thorne to the villa's terrace, where the captain stood alone, staring at the sea. When Hastings reported back, he noted something odd. Thorne had been clutching a small notebook, scribbling furiously, then tucking it into his jacket. Poirot resolved to get a look at that notebook, suspecting it held clues to Thorne's role in the mystery. Was he merely a bystander, or did his military precision hide a killer's intent? As midnight approached, Poirot gathered the guests in the villa's library, its walls lined with ancient tomes that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. The air was thick with unease, the guests' faces pale under the flickering chandelier. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot said, his voice cutting through the silence. "The Serpent statue hides a treasure, and one of you has killed to claim it. The chisel, the seam, the lies, they all point to a truth that cannot stay buried." He paused, his eyes scanning each face, Evelyn's clenched hands, Hale's averted gaze, Clara's nervous fidgeting, Thorne's unreadable stare. "Someone among you knows the combination to the safe. Someone knows the statue's secret. And I, Hercule Poirot, will not rest until it is revealed." Before dismissing them, Poirot caught a fleeting glance between Clara Voss and Captain Thorne, a subtle nod that vanished as quickly as it appeared. He filed it away, suspecting an alliance or a conspiracy. As the guests dispersed, Poirot lingered in the library, his fingers brushing the journal's pages. A new detail caught his eye, a sketch of the Serpent with an arrow pointing to its base, labelled "The Eye Opens." Did it refer to the statue's compartment, or something more symbolic? Poirot's mind hummed with possibilities, each clue tightening the coil of lies. The chapter closes with Villa Serpente cloaked in darkness, the Serpent statue glowing faintly under the moon. The chisel, Elise's whispered sighting, Thorne's notebook, and the journal's cryptic sketch form a web of deception that Poirot is determined to untangle. Who holds the key to the safe? What does the serpent's eye conceal? The truth slithers closer, ready to strike in Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The Eye of the Serpent. The night enveloped Villa Serpente in a heavy silence, broken only by the distant crash of waves against the Riviera cliffs. The marble serpent in the courtyard stood as a cold sentinel, its carved scales glinting under the moonlight, as if guarding the secret hinted at in Sir Reginald's journal. The eye opens. Hercule Poirot sat in the villa's observatory, a small domed room with a telescope pointed at the stars, though his gaze was fixed inward, piecing together the puzzle. Captain Hastings leaned against the wall, his impatience palpable. Poirot, this eye opens business. Surely it's just a metaphor. Poirot's lips curved slightly. No, Hastings, the serpent's eye is no figure of speech. It is a mechanism, a gateway to the truth. Poirot's first task was to decipher the journal's sketch, with its arrow pointing to the statue's base. He returned to the courtyard, now bathed in silver light, and knelt beside the serpent, his gloved fingers tracing the seam he'd found earlier. The sketch suggested a specific point: the serpent's eye, a single polished gem set in its head. Poirot pressed gently, feeling a faint click. A small panel slid open at the statue's base, revealing a hollow space, but it was empty. His heart quickened. Someone had already claimed the contents, or the killer had ensured it remained empty. He closed the panel, noting a faint trace of powder, like chalk, on its edge. Tucking a sample into a handkerchief, he resolved to have it analysed by Inspector Lefebvre's men. Seeking to unravel Captain Thorne's role, Poirot tracked him to the villa's stables, where the captain was brushing a horse, his movements precise but tense. "Captain Thorne," Poirot said, stepping into the lantern-lit space. "Your notebook intrigues me. May I see it?" Thorne's hand froze mid-stroke, his eyes narrowing. "It's private, Monsieur Poirot. Just personal thoughts." Poirot held his gaze. Thoughts, perhaps, about the serpent's secret, or the cigarette case found near the crime. Thorne's jaw tightened, but he handed over the notebook reluctantly. Its pages were filled with sketches of military maps and cryptic notes. One reading: "Guard the eye, or it sees all." Poirot returned the notebook, his mind racing. Did Thorne know about the statue's compartment? Next, Poirot sought Clara Voss, whose pearl and evasive answers marked her as a key player. He found her in the villa's art studio, painting a stormy seascape, her brushstrokes sharp and erratic. "Mademoiselle Voss," he began, holding up the pearl, "this was found where you were not supposed to be. And yet, you know more about the statue, oui?" Clara's brush paused, her eyes flickering with defiance. "I told you I lost it during the tour. As for the statue, it's just a pretty relic." Poirot stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "Then why did you exchange glances with Captain Thorne last night? A shared secret, perhaps?" Clara's face flushed, and she turned back to her canvas, refusing to answer. Poirot noted her trembling hand. Fear or guilt? To probe Lady Evelyn's desperation, Poirot found her in the villa's chapel, a small room lit by flickering candles. She knelt before a stained glass window, her hands clasped, but her face etched with strain. "Madame," Poirot said, sitting beside her, "your husband feared ruin. Was it tied to the serpent's secret?" Evelyn's shoulders stiffened. "Reginald was paranoid," she whispered. "He said the statue held proof of something that could destroy our name. I begged him to sell it, but he refused." Her voice broke, and Poirot sensed truth mingled with evasion. Did she know what the safe contained, or was she protecting someone else? Poirot's investigation took a new turn when Inspector Lefebvre approached, holding a report on the chalky powder from the statue's panel. "It's a rare mineral used in ancient Greek seals," Lefebvre said, "likely from the statue's original site." This linked the statue's compartment directly to Dr. Hale's excavation, deepening Poirot's suspicion of the archaeologist. He decided to search Hale's room, slipping in while the doctor was at breakfast. Among Hale's belongings, Poirot found a worn map of the Greek dig site, marked with a red circle around a temple ruin labelled Serpent's Vault. A note in Hale's handwriting read, "Reginald took what wasn't his." The map confirmed Hale's motive, resentment over a stolen artifact. As dawn broke, Poirot gathered the guests in the villa's conservatory, where lush greenery seemed to close in like a trap. "Mes amis," he said, his voice steady. "The Serpent's eye has opened, but its treasure is gone. Someone in this room knew its secret and acted to claim it, or silence it." His gaze swept over the tense faces. Evelyn's haunted eyes, Hale's clenched fists, Clara's forced calm, Thorne's rigid stance. The powder, the map, the notebook, they point to a conspiracy. But who struck first? Murmurs rippled through the group, but no one spoke. Poirot's words hung in the air, a challenge to the guilty. Before parting, Poirot caught Elise watching from the doorway, her eyes wide with terror. He approached her later in the kitchen, where she was scrubbing pots. "Mademoiselle, the man in the dark coat, did he wear a scarf, perhaps like Captain Thorne?" Elise nodded faintly, then fled, leaving Poirot with a new piece of the puzzle. Thorne's presence at the statue, combined with his cryptic note, painted him as a key figure. But was he hunter or hunted? The chapter closes with Villa Serpente pulsing with secrets, the Serpent's empty compartment a taunting void, Poirot's clues, the chalky powder, Hale's map, Thorne's notebook, Clara's glance, Evelyn's fear, tighten the web around the killer. What was stolen from the Serpent's eye? Who guards the final truth? The mystery coils ever tighter, ready to strike in Chapter 8. Chapter 8. The Venom of Truth. The dawn light crept over Villa Serpente, painting the courtyard in hues of gold and shadow. Yet the marble serpent stood unyielding, its empty compartment a silent accusation. Hercule Poirot sat in the villa's morning room, a cup of tisane cooling beside him, his mind dissecting the web of clues, the chalky powder doctor, Hale's map, Captain Thorne's cryptic notebook, Lady Evelyn's desperation, and Elise's fearful whisper of a man in a dark coat. Each thread pointed to a truth buried deep, but the killer remained a shadow slithering just out of reach. Captain Hastings burst in, his face flushed. "Poirot, the guests are at each other's throats. They're demanding answers." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Bon, Hastings, let them squirm. The venom of truth is most potent when the guilty are cornered." Poirot's first move was to pursue the lead on Captain Thorne, whose notebook and presence near the statue marked him as a pivotal figure. He found Thorne in the villa's armory, polishing a ceremonial sword with meticulous care. The room smelled of oil and steel, its walls lined with antique weapons glinting in the morning light. "Captain," Poirot said, his voice calm but piercing, "your note, 'Guard the eye or it sees all,' suggests you knew of the Serpent's compartment. What did you seek?" Thorne's hand paused, his scarred knuckles whitening. "I was protecting something, not stealing," he said, his voice low. "Reginald trusted me with a task, but I failed." His eyes met Poirot's, raw with something like regret. Poirot pressed further, mentioning Elise's sighting of a man in a dark coat. Thorne's face hardened. "I was there, yes, checking the statue as Reginald asked. But I didn't kill." His words carried conviction, but Poirot noted a flicker of evasion. Thorne was hiding a piece of the truth. Next, Poirot sought to unravel Dr. Marcus Hale's connection to the temple ruin marked on his map. He confronted Hale in the villa's wine cellar, where the archaeologist was inspecting a bottle, his movements jittery. "Doctor!" Poirot began, holding up the map, This Serpent's vault. It is where the statue was found, oui? And you believe Sir Reginald stole something from it? Hale's face paled, the bottle nearly slipping from his grasp. Reginald betrayed me, he spat. The vault held a relic, a golden amulet sacred to the Minoans. He took it, claimed it as his own. I only wanted what was rightfully mine. Poirot's moustache twitched. And did your quest for justice lead to murder? Hale's eyes blazed with denial, but his trembling hands betrayed his fear. Poirot left him, certain Hale's resentment was a motive, but was it enough? To probe deeper into Lady Evelyn's role, Poirot found her in the villa's solarium, surrounded by glass walls that framed the glittering sea. She sat with a letter in her lap, its edges worn from handling. Madame, Poirot said softly, you spoke of ruin. Was the amulet the source of your husband's fear? Evelyn's fingers tightened on the letter, her voice barely a whisper. Reginald said it was cursed, that it brought death to those who possessed it. He hid it, but he wouldn't tell me where. I thought he was mad, until now. Her eyes met Poirot's, filled with a mix of dread and defiance. Poirot noticed the letter's seal, broken but bearing the same archaeological society crest as the one in Sir Reginald's study. Was Evelyn more involved than she admitted? Poirot's next lead was the chalky powder from the statue's compartment, which Inspector Lefebvre's analysis had tied to the Greek dig site. Seeking confirmation, Poirot visited the villa's attic, where Sir Reginald stored artifacts from his collections. Among crates of pottery and scrolls, he found a small vial labelled Serpent's Vault Sample, containing the same chalky mineral. A nearby logbook detailed the excavation, noting a golden artifact removed by Sir Reginald against Hale's protests. The logbook also mentioned a local guide, long deceased, who warned of a curse tied to the amulet. Poirot's mind raced. The amulet was the treasure, likely hidden in the safe or the statue, and its theft had sparked a deadly chain of events. As noon approached, Poirot gathered the guests in the villa's ballroom, its mirrored walls reflecting their strained faces. Mesdames et messieurs, he declared, his voice commanding silence. The Serpent's eye held a golden amulet, stolen from a sacred vault. One of you sought it, and in doing so, spilled blood. He held up the vial of chalky powder, watching their reactions. Hale's sharp intake of breath, Evelyn's clenched hands, Clara's wide-eyed glance at Thorne's stoic mask. The amulet is the key to this murder, and the killer is among you. The room erupted in murmurs, accusations flying. Clara pointed at Hale, crying, "He's obsessed with that statue." Hale snapped back, "And you were snooping around it." Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. The truth will not be shouted, it will be uncovered. Before the gathering dispersed, Poirot caught Elise slipping out, her face pale. He followed her to the servants' staircase, where she clutched a small locket. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "the man in the dark coat, was he carrying something? Perhaps a tool?" Elise nodded, her voice trembling. "A chisel, I think. I saw it gleam in the moonlight." Poirot's heart quickened, the chisel with Hale's initials. But was Hale the man she saw, or was someone framing him? He let Elise go, her locket catching his eye. A simple piece, but engraved with a tiny serpent. A gift from Sir Reginald, perhaps. The chapter closes with Villa Serpente teetering on the edge of chaos, the guests' accusations echoing through its halls. Poirot's clues, the amulet, the chisel, the logbook, Thorne's task, Evelyn's letter, form a tightening noose around the killer. Who claimed the amulet? Whose lies will unravel next? The Serpent's venom courses closer to the truth in Chapter 9. Chapter 9. The Twisted Coil. The afternoon sun hung low over the French Riviera, casting a golden haze across Villa Serpente that did little to dispel the chill of betrayal lingering in the air. The courtyard, once a haven of elegance, now felt like an arena where truths and lies clashed under the unblinking gaze of the marble serpent. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of it all, his compact figure radiating an aura of unyielding determination, as Inspector Lefebvre's men led Miss Clara Voss away in handcuffs. Her confession still echoed in his ears, a passionate outburst, a swing of the statue's coil in a fit of rage. But something gnawed at the edges of his meticulous mind. The autopsy had specified a blow from behind, precise and calculated, not the wild strike of a scorned lover. Clara's words had the ring of partial truth, but Poirot knew the serpent's coil twisted further still. Captain Hastings, wiping sweat from his brow, approached with a mix of relief and confusion. "Well, Poirot, that's it then. Clara's the culprit. Case closed, eh?" Poirot's moustache quivered slightly, his green eyes narrowing. "No, Hastings. The venom has struck, but the serpent has more than one fang. We must probe deeper, lest the true killer slithers away." Poirot's first order of business was to interrogate Clara further, away from the prying eyes of the other guests. Lefebvre arranged for a private room in the villa's west wing, a sunlit parlour with faded tapestries depicting ancient myths. Fitting, given the cursed hoard at the heart of the mystery. Clara sat on a plush armchair, her wrists bound, her once vibrant eyes now dulled with exhaustion and defeat. "Mademoiselle Voss," Poirot began, seating himself opposite her, his voice a blend of sympathy and steel. "Your confession is brave, but incomplete. The blow to Sir Reginald was from behind, a coward's strike, not the face-to-face fury you describe. Why do you protect the real killer?" Clara's head snapped up, a flicker of surprise crossing her features before she masked it with a bitter laugh. "Protect? I'm no fool, Monsieur Poirot. Reginald humiliated me, promised the world, then tossed me aside like yesterday's news. I followed him, yes, argued with him by the serpent. But when I raised my hand, someone else was there, in the shadows. A figure, quick as a ghost, delivered the blow. I fled, terrified, and took the map from the compartment to secure my future." Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "This figure, who was it? Describe them." Clara hesitated, her gaze drifting to the window. Tall, limping slightly, with a glint of silver, perhaps a watch chain. But the night was dark, and fear clouded my sight. Poirot nodded slowly, her description aligning with Elisa's account of Captain Thorne. Yet Clara's eyes held a glint of calculation. Was she shifting blame or unveiling a conspiracy? Leaving Clara under guard, Poirot turned his attention to the forged map Evelyn had produced from her locket. A clever duplicate, its ink too fresh to be ancient. He found Lady Evelyn in her private boudoir, a room adorned with silk drapes and antique mirrors that reflected her pale, drawn face a dozen times over. She sat at a vanity, brushing her hair with mechanical strokes, as if the routine could ward off the encroaching scandal. "Madame Hawthorne," Poirot said, closing the door softly behind him. "Your forgery is exquisite, but why create it? To mislead us or to protect the original?" Evelyn's brush paused mid-stroke, her reflection in the mirror meeting Poirot's gaze. "I made it weeks ago, when Reginald's obsession grew unbearable. He raved about the hoard, the curse, how it would either make us or break us. I copied the map as insurance, in case he lost it, or someone stole it. But I swear I didn't kill him. I loved him, in my way, despite the arguments." Her voice trembled, and Poirot detected genuine grief beneath the poise. "And the safe's combination? You knew it all along?" Evelyn nodded. "He muttered it in his sleep one night. 1835-07, the date we met. I checked the safe after the murder. found it empty except for trifles. Someone had beaten me to it. Poirot filed away the numbers, his mind whirring. Had Clara lied about taking the map? Or was there another thief? The plot thickened as Poirot revisited Dr. Marcus Hale, whose resentment over the stolen discovery simmered like a pot ready to boil over. He located Hale in the villa's laboratory, a makeshift space filled with microscopes and specimen jars, where the archaeologist was examining a fragment of the statue's marble under magnification. "Doctor," Poirot interrupted, his presence startling Hale into dropping a slide. "Your map from the dig site, did it lead you to tamper with the Serpent's eye?" Hale's face reddened, his hands balling into fists. "I've told you, Poirot. Reginald cheated me out of my life's work. That vault in Greece held artifacts beyond value, but he smuggled the statue out, hiding the true map inside. I confronted him that night, demanded my share. He laughed, said the curse would claim me first. We argued by the Serpent, but I left him alive, seething but unharmed." Poirot's eyes bored into him. "And yet, the chisel with your initials was used to pry the panel. Convenient, no?" Hale slammed his palm on the table. "Planted! Someone wants me blamed. Check the shed. Anyone could have taken it." Poirot noted Hale's vehemence. It rang true, but desperation could forge convincing lies. To untangle the web, Poirot enlisted Hastings to shadow Captain Thorne, whose military background and cryptic notebook suggested a man of action, perhaps too much so. Hastings reported back from the villa's armory, a room stocked with antique weapons, where Thorne was polishing a ceremonial sword. "He's cagey, Poirot," kept glancing over his shoulder, muttering about debts repaid. "And that limp, Elise and Clara both mentioned it." Poirot nodded, deciding on a direct approach. He confronted Thorne in the armory, the gleam of blades adding an edge to the encounter. "Captain," Poirot said, blocking the door, "you were seen at the Serpent, limping in the shadows. You assaulted Elise to silence her. And your notebook. Guard the eye, or it sees all. What debt did Sir Reginald owe you from Greece?" Thorne set down the sword with deliberate care, his scarred hands steady. "Reginald hired me as security for the dig, promised a cut of the hoard. When we found the statue, he double-crossed me, said soldiers like me were expendable. I came here to collect, yes. I watched him that night, saw Clara argue with him, then slip away. But when I approached the Serpent, he was already down, the compartment open and empty. I searched his body, found nothing, then heard footsteps, fled before I was seen." Poirot's brow furrowed. "And Elise?" Thorne's eyes darkened. "She saw me lurking earlier. I warned her to stay quiet, perhaps too roughly. But murder? No, Poirot. I'm a soldier, not an assassin." The pieces shifted again when Poirot returned to Elise, who had recovered enough to resume light duties in the kitchen. He found her peeling vegetables, her bruise hidden under makeup, her movements wary. "Mademoiselle," he coaxed, helping himself to a slice of apple. "The man who struck you, was there anything else? A scent, a voice?" Elise's knife paused, her whisper barely audible over the chop. "He smelled of cigar smoke, monsieur, and his voice was gruff, like Monsieur Dubois when he's angry. But it couldn't be—" Poirot's mind leaped. Dubois, the loyal butler, with access to every corner of the villa. Had his rigidity concealed a deeper motive? Poirot thanked Elise and sought out Dubois in the pantry, where shelves of preserves gleamed like jewels. "Monsieur Dubois," Poirot said, his tone accusatory, "you overheard arguments about the vault's key. You know the villa's secrets better than anyone. Did you strike Sir Reginald from behind, using your knowledge to claim the map?" Dubois' face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed a flicker. "I am loyal to the Hawthorns, monsieur. But Sir Reginald, he was planning to sell the estate, dismiss the staff. I discovered the safe's combination by accident, cleaning his desk. I checked it that night, found the map, but heard voices, hid. I saw Clara leave, then Hale approach and argue. When Hale left, Sir Reginald bent to the statue, and that's when a shadow moved. It was Thorne, or so I thought, but the blow came swift, and I fled, fearing implication." Poirot pressed. You smoked a cigar that night. Dubois nodded reluctantly. A habit. After hours. As evening descended, Poirot assembled the remaining suspects in the grand salon, the room's chandeliers casting a warm glow that belied the cold revelations to come. Lady Evelyn, Dr. Hale, Captain Thorne and Dubois stood in a tense circle, Hastings and Lefebvre flanking Poirot. Mes amis, Poirot announced, his voice commanding the silence. Clara Voss confessed, but her story cracks under scrutiny. The map she held was the original, taken in panic, but the killer struck after she fled. Each of you had motive. Evelyn for security, Hale for revenge, Thorne for debt, Dubois for loyalty, twisted into desperation. But the Serpent sees all, the blow from behind, the cigar smoke, the limp that could be feigned. Accusations flew. Hale pointed at Thorne, Thorne at Dubois. Evelyn sobbed denials. Poirot raised a hand, his eyes gleaming. The truth is in the details. The chalky powder on the panel, unique to Greece, but also dusted on Dubois' preserves jars from imported goods. No, wait! He paused, his little grey cells aligning the final pieces. In a flash, Poirot whirled on Hale. Doctor, you said the curse claims in blood. You planted the chisel, forged the limp with a staged injury earlier that day, witnessed by the gardener. You struck Reginald after Clara left, took nothing because the map was already gone, but ensured the curse's legend lived to cover your tracks. Hale's face crumpled, his shoulders sagging. He ruined me. The hoard was my legacy, not his plaything. I waited in shadow, used a marble fragment from the statue itself as the weapon, tossed it in the sea after. Lefebvre's men moved in, cuffing Hale as he ranted about ancient curses. Poirot sighed. The puzzle complete, but the victory bittersweet. The chapter closes with Villa Serpente exhaling its secrets. The marble serpent now just stone under the stars. Clara's charges reduced to accessory, the others cleared, but scars remain. Yet one loose end nags. The hoard's true location, whispered only in the wind. The final revelation awaits in Chapter 10. Chapter 10. The Serpent's Final Whisper. The Villa Serpente stood bathed in the soft glow of a Riviera sunset, its marble courtyard serene yet heavy with the weight of unveiled truths. The serpent statue, once a symbol of mystery and menace, now seemed diminished, its carved eyes no longer holding sway over the villa's inhabitants. Hercule Poirot gathered the remaining guests and staff in the grand dining hall, where the long mahogany table gleamed under candlelight, a stark contrast to the darkness that had unfolded. Dr. Marcus Hale was gone, led away in handcuffs, his confession of murder echoing through the villa like a final tolling bell. Yet Poirot's little grey cells were not at rest. Loose ends, Clara's partial truth, the hoard's true fate, and the lingering shadow of the curse demanded resolution. Captain Hastings stood by his side, his face a mix of awe and exhaustion. Poirot, you've done it again, but is it truly over? Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes gleaming with quiet resolve. Mon cher Hastings, the serpent's venom is drawn, but its whisper remains. Tonight we silence it for good. Poirot began by addressing the assembled group. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, Captain Julian Thorne, Monsieur Dubois, Elise, and a handful of staff, their faces etched with relief and lingering dread. Inspector Lefebvre stood at the room's edge, his notepad open, ready to record the final chapter. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot said, his voice clear and commanding. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne was no act of passion, but a calculated strike born of greed and betrayal. Dr. Marcus Hale confessed to delivering the fatal blow, driven by a vendetta over a stolen legacy. But the serpent's secret runs deeper, and each of you has played a part in its unravelling. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle, the candlelight flickering across tense faces. Turning to Clara Voss, who sat pale and unbound, her charges reduced to theft and obstruction. Poirot held up the original treasure map she'd clutched in the boathouse. Mademoiselle Voss, you admitted to arguing with Sir Reginald, to taking the map from the Serpent's hidden compartment in panic. But you saw another figure strike him. A figure you described as tall, limping, with a silver watch chain. You believed it was Captain Thorne, oui? Clara nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I thought so, but it was so dark, and I was terrified. Poirot's gaze softened, but he pressed on. Your fear saved you, but also clouded the truth. The limp was a deception, staged by Dr. Hale to cast suspicion on Thorne. Hale admitted to injuring his leg earlier that day, limping in view of the gardener to establish a false trail. Clara's eyes widened, her hands trembling as she realized her mistake. Poirot then faced Captain Thorne, whose stoic demeanor had cracked only slightly under scrutiny. Captain, your notebook spoke of guarding the eye, a reference to your role in Greece, protecting the dig site where the Serpent statue was unearthed. You claimed Sir Reginald owed you a share of the hoard, yet you found the statue's compartment empty. Why then did you assault Elise? Thorne's scarred hands clenched, his voice low but steady. I panicked, Monsieur Poirot. I saw her watching me near the Serpent earlier that day. I thought she'd betray me to Reginald, ruin my chance to claim what was owed. I grabbed her, warned her to stay silent, too harshly, I admit. But I didn't kill him. When I reached the statue that night, he was already dead, the compartment open. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Your truth holds, Captain, but your silence nearly cost you. The silver cigarette case, dropped in haste, was a clue Hale exploited to frame you. Next, Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn, whose locket and forged map had muddled the investigation. Madam, he said, producing the forged scroll, you crafted this to protect your husband's legacy, fearing the scandal of his obsession with a cursed hoard. But you knew the safe's combination, 1835-07, the date of your meeting with Sir Reginald. Why not take the original map? Evelyn's eyes brimmed with tears, her voice raw. I checked the safe before the gala, found the map and copied it to keep it safe from his madness. But when I returned after the murder, it was gone. I thought Clara had taken it, or worse, that Reginald had hidden it elsewhere. I loved him, Monsieur Poirot, despite his secrets. Poirot's gaze softened. Your love blinded you, madame, but it also saved you from suspicion. The safe was empty because Dr. Hale had already opened it, using a stolen copy of the combination. Poirot's attention shifted to Monsieur Dubois, the butler whose rigid loyalty had masked a deeper knowledge. Monsieur Dubois, you overheard arguments about the vault's key, saw a shadow strike Sir Reginald, and smelled of cigar smoke, as Elise noted. Why conceal your presence in the courtyard? Dubois' face, usually impassive, betrayed a flicker of shame. I feared being blamed, monsieur. I was in the pantry, smoking, when I heard raised voices, Clara and Sir Reginald. I stepped into the courtyard, saw her leave, then Hale approach, arguing about the dig. I hid behind a pillar when Thorne appeared, limping, or so I thought. Then a shadow moved fast, striking Sir Reginald from behind. I fled thinking it was Thorne, fearing I'd be accused as a witness. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And the safe? You knew its combination from cleaning Sir Reginald's desk. Dubois nodded. I checked it earlier that week, saw the map, but left it. My loyalty was to the family, not its secrets. Poirot stepped to the center of the room, holding the original map aloft, its ancient coordinates glowing in the candlelight. This map, hidden in the Serpent's eye, led to a hoard of jewels in an Aegean cave, cursed by legend to bring death. Sir Reginald smuggled the statue from Dr. Hale's dig, using his wealth to claim what was not his. Hale, consumed by resentment, learned of the map's hiding place through old society contacts. He staged a limp, planted his own chisel, and struck Sir Reginald with a marble fragment from the statue's base, discarded in the sea to fuel the curse's myth. He paused, turning to Elise, who stood trembling at the room's edge. Mademoiselle Elise, your fear saved you, but your silence prolonged the mystery. The man in the dark coat was Hale, his limp a ruse, his cigar smoke betraying him to your senses. Poirot's voice rose, commanding the room. But the hoard itself remains elusive. The map's coordinates point to a cave submerged by tides, accessible only at rare intervals. Hale killed for it. Clara stole for it. Thorne chased it. Evelyn hid it. Dubois witnessed it. Yet the curse's true power was not in jewels, but in the greed it ignited. He folded the map, handing it to Lefebvre. Inspector, the hoard is for your government to pursue. My task is done. The serpent's whisper is silenced. The room exhaled, the tension breaking like a wave. Evelyn sobbed quietly. Thorne bowed his head. Dubois straightened with relief, and Elise wiped her tears. As the guests dispersed, Poirot lingered by the courtyard, staring at the serpent statue under the fading sun. Hastings joined him, shaking his head. Blimey, Poirot, you untangled it all. The map, the murder, the lies. But that curse, do you believe it? Poirot smiled faintly. The only curse, Hastings, is the human heart's hunger for more than it can hold. Now let us leave this place to its peace. He turned, his silhouette sharp against the twilight. The case closed, but its echoes lingering. The chapter, and the mystery, closes with Villa Serpente restored to quiet, the serpent's gaze no longer menacing. The hoard remains a legend, its jewels lost to the sea. But the truth shines clear under Poirot's relentless logic. As the stars emerge, he walks away, ready for the next puzzle. If you've enjoyed this twisting tale, hit that subscribe button and join us for more mysteries. Your support means the world to us.